Welcome to Extra Takes, hosted by Northland Church Senior Pastor, Dr. Joshua Laxton. Join us each week as Pastor Josh reveals the rest of the story behind his sermons. We'll discuss how those who follow Christ can live out a biblical vision for the church in our world today.
Well, hello, Northland family and friends. Welcome to another episode of Extra Takes. I'm your co-host, PJ, along with Matthew Shiles. This is the very first time I'm in our new production studio. So huge shout out to Jimmy. That's what we call him. We call him Jimmy. And it's almost like Forrest Gump, like Forrest. Anyways, my name is Forrest. But I don't know why they call him Jimmy.
Jimmy.
Yeah, I would ask Steve, the wizard, to tell us why, but I don't know
just
if
ask
want
Steve.
to come up. Yeah. But anyways, Jimmy, huge shout out to Jimmy, Paul, for doing this, and then Joy. I don't know if Joy would ever watch this, but Joy, if you ever watch this, or maybe those who know of Joy, I don't know Joy's last name, but 15 years old, did this whole entire desk, painted it, and
hand painted it to look like wood,
and so a big shout out to Steve too, because I think he supervised.
Yeah. He told them what to do.
He gave the approval. So anyways, but man, thank you so much to the entire team who did this. This is really, really cool. Very, very nice space. So but we're here back. We're back in the studio.
Yeah, welcome back.
Yeah.
It's been a long time.
It definitely has felt long. Oh, yeah.
But this last 2 weeks have been really, really, man, what's the word? Incredible, emotional.
No, we didn't do one on the Incredible.
There's a lot. Yeah.
So.
It's a lot. Yeah, I did.
It was a lot.
Man,
I mean, I'm like, I wish we had more weeks, but we don't.
But even just with 2 weeks, this is going to be a series that will be lasting in people's minds.
Yeah. Well, and also one of the things I did think about it, because again, at some point we'll do another series on emotions. It really gave me a good foundation. Mm-hmm. Like if I wouldn't use Inside Out again, but I believe that there's so much foundational material here, you can just build off of it.
There's a lot of material here.
You could probably write a book around it.
I think you could. Yeah, even as we were going through and looking at the outline, you got to the last part. Where is it? That fifth question: how do we keep rogue emotions out of your house?
Yeah. And
you go through 5. We could talk about just those 5.
Well, yeah.
There's so much there.
Well, it is so much. Well, because
it's its own sermon in and of itself.
Well, yeah. Well, each of them would be its own sermon. That's why, like, each
could be
its own chapter. Be a chapter.
Yeah.
Because, like, you're looking at possessing the promise. Or the possessing the promises. There's so many, there's so many other scriptures that you could go to. Like, in 2 weeks you can't even be exhaustive. You know, even in 5 weeks can't necessarily be exhaustive. There's so much there.
Yeah.
But foundation material. Awesome.
Yeah, so this was Emotions Through the Lens of the Gospel, and this was July 26th and 27th, 2025, and this was Inside Out, really primarily Inside Out 2. The main point was emotions express the image of God who is in the center of our lives. And then the main idea that we had for those 2 weeks is how we deal with our emotions can either enhance or erode our overall personal and interpersonal health. So what you did this week, you started out by giving 5 quotes from Inside Out 2. You gave us the main point. And then you asked this question: how should we process rogue emotions? So you give 5 questions and answers of how should we process rogue emotions. You started by what are rogue emotions? Then you asked the question, well, what about jealousy? Then you asked where do rogue emotions come from? You asked what happens when rogue emotions take up residence, and that's really what we see with Inside Out 2 is that they take up residence. And then that 5th part that we were just talking about, the 5th question, how do you keep rogue emotions out of your house? So 5 principles, and those principles were pursue physically healthy patterns, put hope in God, persevere in purpose. Man, this is a lot of P's. Possess God's promises, and persist in prayer and power. You ended with a couple reminders, and then we had this this moment for people to come forward and really put it into practice. There's a lot there.
I just chuckled. It was a lot there.
Well, and so I watched the 9, and then I rewatched the 11, and it just felt like the 11 felt like there was this deep sense of conviction that you were preaching out of this week. And I think part of it was maybe the honesty and rawness, and we'll get to that. But I just think the way that you approached this week was maybe different than other weeks. But before we get there, I want to start with these first couple questions. Can you describe this week in one word?
Probably honest.
Yeah, interesting.
Like, we'll just be honest. Like, if you just be honest. Like, that probably would be a good word. Or
yeah, that theme of it's okay not to be okay, right? So just like being honest with yourself or with others, or how you're doing.
That they're real. Yeah. Because because there's a part in this podcast that I couldn't put it in. I was telling Joni when I was literally crafting this sermon at the beach, on the beach, underneath the tent. So I'm like, man, I want to put this section in, and the section that I wanted to put in was how the church can be a safe place for those struggling with mental health. And I'm like, well, and there was like almost 10 things, and I'm like, there's no way. Like, wow. It's already long enough. And so that's part of where I wanted to model honesty, because these emotions are real. You're not going to get rid of them, but that's where they can be more of a stranger,
sure,
than a family member.
Yeah. So how about biggest takeaway from this week, or even the series, since we're looking at
the biggest takeaway, I would say that the biggest takeaway is when, and I really appreciated the movie, and one of the things that I did do is I researched who did Disney or Pixar, who did they go to as the experts to help them with the movie? Yeah. And so it was Dr. Paul Ekman, and then Dr. Dacher Keltner. I've actually used Keltner's stuff in Sadness. Oh. I remember it was actually a message in one of the Christmas series. So I'm like, I remember him.
Interesting.
But those were the experts, the scholars that they consulted in this movie. So I actually really do believe that they did a really good job at helping us understand kind of emotions, like the primary emotions, and then they would call these more secondary emotions. But so we had, this is where I enjoyed giving us our own kind of, when I say Christian framework and language, because I actually believe that they are rogue emotions. But nevertheless, the biggest takeaway, and then me kind of expounding on it, was what happens when your rogue emotions take center stage and they actually take up residence. They lock away these core emotions, these secondary emotions, but then there's some things that happen. And that's where in the movie, they talk about bad experiences, bad memories, all that. Yeah. But all right, okay, that's fine, but what happens when, and this is where I'm like, well, we got to expound on what happens when you start creating and crafting yourself into a bad identity. All of these things take root, and then this is where I wanted to create another slide, is that when you live in those things, we'll talk about those later, but this is the biggest takeaway. Yeah. When you live in those things, here's what will typically happen. You will take those secondary sin-producing emotions that can be healthy, that we can image God with anger and disgust and sadness. But what happens, though, is when you let rogue emotions live in the center, then those rogue emotions actually mutate anger. They actually mutate sadness. Interesting. They actually mutate disgust. So that's where you can live in this debilitating anger, where you are so angry at the world, or you can live in this complete downcast emotion where and that downcast is debilitating, where you are so overcome with grief and sadness you can't. So what happens is that those rogue emotions actually mute. Now, again, you don't learn this in the movie, but they actually mutate those healthy emotions into unhealthy expressions of those emotions.
Wow. There's so much there.
Yeah. So that's where I'm
so
like,
that's your takeaway. Wow.
probably do need to, I'm actually writing a book right now. It is the rough draft is due September 1st on transitions.
Yeah.
So
it's not on emotions.
So it's not on emotions right now, but I'm like, you really could. And this is part of where if I could, if anybody, but if I could get ahead and take when that movie comes out and do this.
Sure.
And then, because I would say this would have a shelf life, at least Inside Out 2, have a shelf life of at least another 2 years, maybe 3. And maybe they come out with a third one.
Yeah.
And they start doing the adults and they follow Riley. Knowing how some people think, they probably are going to turn this into something like that anyways.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fascinating. So I wanted to look at a couple of these quotes. You gave us 5 quotes. The first one was, "Riley, are you okay?" No. This was one of the most poignant moments when you said, it's okay to not be okay. And so you were pretty raw and honest in this series, especially this week. You said something I want to dig down into. You said, not everyone is a safe person. So how do you recognize or discern a safe person? And then the follow-up to that is that rawness required to find a safe person? So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, how do you look? It's like a safe person. So not everybody can deal with your emotions and the rawness of your emotions. Not everybody can deal with the rawness of in some sense, your experiences or your life. And so safe people. So one of the biggest elements and characteristics of safe people is that they just love you for you. Like you don't have to perform for them. They love you at your deepest and darkest levels, as well as love you the same at your highest mountaintop experiences. And the safe people, and when you look at the Lord, He is the safest of all safe people, because He's going to love you at your darkest moments. Yeah. And He's not going to love you anymore for your victorious mountaintop moments. That's one of the things that the big takeaway, even with Elijah at that, at that juncture in his life. Yeah. So that's that I would say that's the biggest characteristic. Also, safe people aren't going to immediately try to fix you.
That's big.
And I had to learn that because I'm a fixer, and there were times where, Joni just needed to share with me what she was feeling at that moment, what she was experiencing at that moment. And early on, I'm saying early on, we've been married 22 years, come in about a week and a half. Nice. And so maybe I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years ago, I've learned this, where she doesn't need me to immediately go to work fixing her. Well, I just be safe enough to listen and to process, because sometimes people just need to process their emotions. Yeah. Some people need to process their experiences. And so safe people actually allow you to do that, and they might ask good questions. So tell me more about that, because safe people are actually, part of their safety is to actually help you even be a safe place to actually explore the deeper recesses of those emotions. unsaved people immediately cut you off and go, well, you shouldn't be feeling that way. Well, you've just completely dismissed what I was sharing. You've completely dismissed my emotions, and you immediately is like, you shouldn't be feeling that way. And so this is part of where some of the most, in some sense, you could put air quotes around mature Christians are some of the unsafest people, because they over spiritualize. They over spiritualize where you should be feeling that way. Well, hang on, let's go through some things. Even Jesus, could you imagine if Jesus, had his had his disciples close to him in the Garden of Gethsemane, where he's feeling the weight of what's about to happen, and there probably is. I mean, this is part of where Jesus still was 100% human. He's feeling the weight, but he's given it to the Lord. And there might even be a hint of the when, as you could even say, because somebody came up to me like after the first week and said, do you think Jesus feared? And I'm like, at the very end of the day, if he feared anything, it would have been separation from the Father because of the weight of sin. So, but anyways, could you imagine some super spiritual Christian? Well, you know who you are. You shouldn't be feeling that way. You know what's going to happen in 3 days. I mean, it's kind of like what? You're discounting the weight of that moment. And so this is where just even because even the people that have been the Christians the longest can be really the most the unsafest people. So that's where, if you just really want to be safe, let people share without any judgment. Let people be able to process what they're feeling emotionally with you in that moment without immediately trying to fix them. Again, immediately, maybe after they process and you've asked a couple of questions, maybe you can ask them, hey, would you do you mind? Because that's another thing. Safe people actually ask for permission.
Interesting.
Hey, do you mind if I weigh in? I've been hearing some things that I actually have some thoughts. Do you mind if I share them with you? And then safe people don't immediately go to themselves and talk about them. Let me tell you, because now you've just taken the focus. Because again, especially when people are being authentic, vulnerable, they're processing. Don't take the focus off them and put it on yourself. Because again, that's like, let me tell you how, it's like, hey, okay, let's sit in that for a second. So this is where I'm just saying, in the moment, let's try to be, a safe person. Yeah. So, and there's actually a book called Safe People by Dr. Henry Townsend.
Yeah, that's great. Something that also comes to mind for me is oftentimes it's earned over time. Yeah. It's not immediate. Sometimes a not saved person will be made clear immediately. But sometimes that, just like any sort of deep friendship that would be built over time, how you're going to discern how safe that person is, given certain circumstances. As you share things with people, do they hold it against you? Do they bring it back up at inopportune times? Do they throw it back in your face? Do they use your emotions as more of a weapon than as a way to bond and really, help you heal? So
yeah, well, and I've had people in my past, because I really tried to be. And hopefully if people saw this over the last 2 weeks, I really tried to model what I think we ought to be as growing, healthy, maturing Christians. Is we need to be authentic, we need to be vulnerable, we need to be very self-aware. I mean, that's part of emotional intelligence, is self-aware. But I've had people say, you wrote this on a paper, or you talked about your weaknesses and your blind spots. And they'll bring that up. Well, I still see those, and I'm like, Wow. Okay. So something that I wrote, like you're immediately going to, and it's kind of like, well, I didn't write those so that you can just throw them in my face.
Yeah.
Because that,
Sure.
for me, like that, how would you like if, Kaylee threw, you're just, and it's kind of like, well, that's not really a safe person that will throw things, throw your imperfections, throw your weaknesses that you've already been self-aware, of. And so.
So let me ask you that, because you were really raw and honest on a big stage to a lot of people.
Yeah.
Did you think about that? Hey, some people may use this against me. Like, did that go into the calculus of whether you were going to share, how much you shared? Like,
and what I shared, I wanted to be honest, and I'm sure some people can't handle that brutal honesty from a pastor, because I get it. I mean, many people put pastors, church leaders on a pedestal, but I've always said, if you put me on a pedestal, I'm going to share a story where you can take me off. Because the only person that should be on the pedestal is Jesus.
Yeah.
So I've really wanted to model that. And I actually think that part of me modeling that, and sure, you run the risk of people going, that's too honest for me. I'm going to go somewhere where somebody doesn't share their struggles. And it's also generational. People have to realize this. It really is kind of generational, because those of the older generation, and I would say kind of older Gen Xers than baby boomers and the silent generation, I know this is a generality of those generations, but those generations, when it came to pastors, tended to not be authentic and vulnerable, and that there was this elevation too. Now, one of the things that I think has happened, though, in our society, in our culture, is that, and I think there are reasons for this, and in some sense, good reasons, that pastors, because in the 20th century, 19th century, everybody elevated pastors, and then kind of towards the end of the 20th century and now the 21st century, I mean, we see story after story of pastor failure. Pastors and scandals and all that, and so in some sense there's this skepticism of pastors, and so because the previous generation, we so elevated them, and so what I'm just going to do is I'm just going to tell you where I'm struggling, and but here's the thing, I hope that you hear, and this is also part of an accountability mechanism for me, is that, all right, I'm going to tell you where I have struggled in these things, but I'm going to tell you how I'm relying on Jesus to actually get me through these things.
Yeah.
Because that's what I want, because it's not about me achieving perfection. It's about me undergoing sanctification. And that's part of the reason why I needed a Savior, and I need a Savior, and I will need a Savior. And I'm just telling you my story of how I constantly need a Savior, how I need a king, and how he helps me process not only kind of core emotions and secondary emotions, but even how I process rogue emotions. And I wanted to invite you into that, because I actually think, based upon even the research, is that this cultural generation that we live in, they just want to know, are you real? Well, I hope and pray like what you see is what you get. And I was thinking, I was like, I actually wish I would have done the principles and the truth differently. I actually wish I would have communicated what I'm about to do, and going through these 5 principles is how I preach the gospel to myself. Because not everybody, and here's the reason why, if I had to do it over again, I would have done that, is because my personality, I deal better many times with a coach getting animated in my face.
Interesting.
Now, not all the time.
Yeah. But
so as I preach those points, there are you need to be you need to be healthy.
Yeah.
You need to get rest. Like I need and this is where in my life I needed somebody to get in my face. Now, and I know that that's not everybody's personality, so that's the reason why I wish I would have communicated. I'm about to preach these points as the way I actually preach them to myself because of my personality. Because not everybody is this DC kind of personality. Some people might be. I'm talking about disc personality at this point. Somebody might have needed me to be more soft spoken.
But I'm an SC, so I'm almost opposite from you with the disc, but the way you preach those points came across very authentic.
I mean, but I know some people don't want me, but that's where when you look at put your hope in God, man, and this is what I've literally. I mean, I'm telling you, this is how I demonstrated that on the stage is I'm telling you, it's literally how I'm processing it to myself.
Yeah,
and that's why some of the songs through some of the most tumultuous times where I was, more anxious and, I mean, borderline, depressed. Where I'm like, even if so it's a song by Shane and Shane, Though He Slay Me. I'm singing that song, crying out in my own heart and mind, going, even if He slays me, even if I never go, yet I will praise Him. I'm going to put my hope in Him. That is taken straight from Job. And so, so I preach that the way I actually preach it to myself.
Well, that's amazing.
So,
all right, so let's look at this next quote. You don't get to choose who Riley is. Anxiety, you need to let her go. And this was where you really said, who does get to choose who Riley is? Such a strong point. And it was a bit of an apologetic for why something like choosing a Disney series can be so powerful, because you said Disney gives us a foundation to have a serious dialogue about our lives and our emotions. And it shows you, it gives us a foundation. It shows us just enough, but there's a limitation. There's a gap. And this is where we can say, well, are we thinking critically and thinking deeply about how our faith enters into that gap?
Yeah. Well, and what's so fun, it's so funny when you look at, even, again, when you're really trying to process this movie through the lens of the gospel. I mean, I'm looking at it poking holes all in it.
Yeah.
So, because here's Riley, who has all of these new emotions, and no one's helping her process them. She's somehow processing it with herself. Oh, no. I mean, Lord have mercy. We can see. I mean, this is part of where I'm like, and again, I appreciate the writers. I appreciate the scholars, and there are, again, some common grace things that we can learn from. Yeah. But when you look at the research in our own world, in reality, not an infotainment type of movie, our teenagers are losing the emotional battle. There is an epidemic that is happening with our teenagers' mental health. They came back, and basically what Disney says, well, they can process it themselves. No, they can't. So who's going to process it with them? Who's determined? Because the three biggest questions that the next generation, that the younger generation are asking, and it was put out by Fuller Youth Institute, and their kind of latest book has been out about a year or two already. But who am I? What's my purpose? Those are two of the biggest questions, and the third one, I can't remember what the third one is. But it's who am I? My identity, and why am I here? They don't know. So if they don't know, how are they going to come at it on their own? That's Riley. How is she? So if anxiety is trying to create Riley's identity, and then joy, the emotion, is saying, anxiety, you don't get to choose who Riley is. Well, who does get to choose?
Yeah.
And here's the thing, you don't want your mama to choose, and your mama might be a great woman, but she got her own stuff. And she might have a tendency, because here's what people usually have a tendency to do, they're going to shape that person into who they think they ought to be.
Yeah.
So maybe her mom thinks she ought to be a hockey player, and you ought to be a hockey player, but her dad might, so how do we even let people choose who we are? Because again, they got their own journey, they got their own stuff that they're trying to wrestle through, So who gets to choose? And this is part of the apologetic of our faith. It might be a really good idea to let the person who knows you better than you know yourself, to let them choose who you are. And that's part of where now processing the emotions through the lens of the gospel, because here's what the gospel, King Jesus, he knows who you are. He knows your worst, and he in some sense knows your best. He knows your imperfections, he knows your weaknesses, he knows your blind spots, but he also knows your gifts and your abilities and your skill. But because he gave you all of those, and then he knows because he knows. I mean, he knows you better than you know yourself. But he also knows that what he has accomplished through his death and resurrection, if you believe in him and you yield your life to him, he knows the version of who you can become in him.
Amen. Yeah, this really allows us to answer the question, why is the gospel good news to this culture? And that's what this is shown, the way you dissect these movies. You show where there's common grace, and then you show where there's holes, and you go there. This is where the gospel is good news to this culture. So if we look at the main point, you say emotions express the image of God who is in the center of our lives. You give us the faith framework again, which I think is just an incredible way to illustrate what was being described. And you talked about, whatever is in the center, becomes that idol. So the God of anxiety becomes that idol. Do you feel like that word idol, that's too strong a word to use?
What? Not if it. Not
anything
if it takes,
that's in the center.
Not if it takes. Well, because not if it takes control. I mean, because anxiety is telling you what your God is. So anxiety may not necessarily be the idol, but it's the emotion expressing the idol.
But there's something else. You're saying if there's anything in the center that's not Jesus, it's an idol.
That's controlling you. Because this is part of where the Spirit, I say the Spirit is supposed to control us. And we talked about this, I can't remember, not too long ago, but Ephesians 4. Do not get drunk on wine, which leads to debauchery. We did this in our tech series, but be filled with the Holy Spirit. Okay, so no other substance, and here's what I would say, no other emotion ought to control you other than the Spirit of the living God. That's who ought to be controlling us. So anything that is occupying your house, the only person that ought to be occupying your house is the Spirit of the living God, because he's the one moving and controlling you. And in how you see the world, what you believe your purpose is, how you perceive ethics, what is good, what is bad, what is right, what is wrong, and how you're maturing more into the image of Jesus. You ought to be driven by the Spirit. Now again, that doesn't mean, and this is the thing, that doesn't mean you're going to be perfect. This is where at some point, whenever I have time, I don't know when that will be, when I have more time.
I believe it.
I believe it. Yeah. But I want to explore more, and I mentioned this in the Genesis series, where Adam, when he's at the tree and he's being passive, that wasn't the sin.
Yeah.
But he's clearly not guarding and keeping the garden.
He's not doing what was commanded of him. Yeah.
Do not eat from the tree.
Yeah.
For the day that you eat of it, you shall surely die. So this is part of where I'm becoming more convinced. Let's put it that way. I'm becoming more convinced that God has not called us to perfection. He has called us to faithfulness.
Yeah.
Because there seems to be, even, and when I say an imperfection in the garden before sin even entered into the world. And so this is part of where, like,
imperfection before sin.
Like, so here, like, so, and you know, and this is where I can explore this on the podcast. Can't explore this on the weekend. But are we saying that Adam would have never, like, when I say stumped his toe, or in some sense tripped over his feet? Like, are we saying everything was so perfect that there was no room for, when I say imperfection, because that's perfection, and that's where there's only one who is perfect, and that's God. God would never stumble. Now, what he did is he subjected himself by becoming human to an imperfect world. But God is, I mean, he is flawless. He is perfect. We just image him. So that's the thing. We aren't God. So that's all I'm saying there is that's where now when we're living, so there's going to be times where there is this imperfection that happens, but doesn't mean that we're sinning. Like, that's where I want you to know, even about these emotions. And that's why I wanted to share, like, about me, is that I do have anxious moments. But that doesn't mean that I'm sinning in those moments.
Yeah, and if we think about the faith framework and what's in the center, I think we can connect it back to what you had talked about later, is, are these rogue emotions taking up residence? That's
because that's where, when your rogue emotions take up residence and they become the controlling force.
And that word control is, I think, really important.
And that's where we can go over that. And I'll even put it up here on the, I don't know if I can, because I think it was sharing that the production studio, is currently in use. But anyways, because I'd put it up there again, to show you that when the rogue emotions take control, and then you start acting out of these now mutant emotions, and that you have an unrighteous anger, or you have an unrighteous, like, envy and jealousy that is driving you to steal, or whatever it may be. Now we've crossed the threshold,
and that's where we can say, hey, there's an idol. There's an idol in your life. And I think where I wanted to push the envelope a bit about even asking that idol question, is it too strong, is because we play church so much that I think even throwing out that word idol, whoa, hold on, I can have stuff in the center without it being an idol, right? But I think what you're doing here is allowing us to make a little bit more of a clear distinction of, like, how do we actually discern what has taken up residence?
Well, God's not going to let us be a polygamist. So he ain't going to let him be in the center and somebody else in the center. No, you either serve one or the other. You don't get to serve. You don't get to be married to both. So that's why I would say, like, anything that's taking up residence and they sleeping in the bed of your heart and your mind,
he's no longer there.
That's your God, and you're going to be expressing the image of that God. That's why, like, that scene of anxiety going berserk and almost like burning out Riley's circuits, and Riley was acting out at that point in her life. She's out of control, hurting people and hurting herself. That's the point where we have now crossed the threshold. So that's part of the reason why I want to be really, really clear. In dealing with these rogue emotions, just dealing with them and having them isn't sin. That's not sinning.
Right.
Trying to process why you're anxious or like that, that's just part of being now human, living in a fallen world. Those things did not exist prior to sin. And so just because they pay you a visit doesn't mean that you're paying a visit to the sin clinic. That's the reason why I wanted to help us process those, to get, how do you make them a stranger and not a family member, because a family member is going to take up residence, and at some point when that happens, they're going to kick God out.
Yeah, that's helpful. So let's look at this idea of how should we process emotions. Let's look at this question, where do rogue emotions come from? There was a couple things under here. You said 1 in 8 people in the world live with a mental disorder. Man, that's massive. In this quote, I want to talk about this Jonathan Haidt quote from The Anxious Generation. He said, if you're depressed, if you're anxious, you're not weak, you're not crazy, you're not a machine with broken parts, you're a human being with unmet needs. Why'd you use that quote to help illustrate this?
I mean, because I really, and that's why I highlighted you're a human being with unmet needs, because I really do believe, because, and that's why I even said that unhealthy fear is really the root cause of all of these, because what you're perceiving is that you need something that you're not getting, or you've lost something that you believe that you need, and so this anxious generation, this depressed generation are living with unmet needs. I actually really believe that. And again, that's in that third category of spiritual and physical imbalances. Like, I really do believe that there are mental health disorders like PTSD, bipolar, schizophrenia, RAD. There are some eating disorders because of chemical imbalances. I mean, so and I know that I'm missing some there. So so that's where I do believe that there are chemical imbalances. We live in a fallen world.
Yeah.
And I do believe that many living with those will need like medicine. And this is where I believe in common grace, that there's medicine that can help stabilize a body chemically. This is where I believe therapy can help people process trauma that has caused a chemical imbalance, and that ongoing therapy. But really, like when I say most important, is that the church and people ought to care for these individuals, and that we shouldn't put a stigma on that. And so I really want to stress that, and then possessed and oppressed by a demonic spirit. Now, here's what I would say even about that. I actually believe that spiritual and physical imbalances, if you live with them long enough, can actually bring about possession or oppression. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
When you open up your life, when you open up your heart and your mind to demonic influences, that's where they can literally come in and set up residence where you can't even shake it. So again, I'm not saying that every time somebody, but I do believe that people can open up themselves to demonic influences. And so I did, I really wanted to share that, because I think there are some, now here's the thing, there are some sections or segments of Christianity, they see a demon under every rock. Now, I don't see a demon under every rock, but I do see demonic influences all throughout the biblical narrative from Old Testament to New Testament, and I believe they still live and breathe and move, because even Paul says that we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but we wrestle against the rulers and principalities of darkness. So they're real and they're there. So I don't want to dismiss the reality of the demonic world. I just don't want us to see them under every influence, because I also believe in discipleship, and I believe in healthy living, and the healthy living is both spiritual and physical. So anyway, so that's where, when you look at the Jonathan Haidt principle, that, and I believe I heard that off of an interview that he gave, that came out of that kind of book, but I really thought that he captured it well, of unmet needs, which is part of the reason why I'm like, okay, label the emotion, and then, hey, can you describe why you're feeling that? Because what you're going to probably write down is something that you fear, that you either have and you don't want to live without, or that you don't have that you need. And that's what so I really like that. And that's where I wanted to use that as the diving board into these statements.
Yeah, the unhealthy fear is the root of all these rogue emotions, right?
And so what if all goes wrong? So what you need is everything to go right. is what you're saying. You need everything to go right. What's wrong with me? Okay, so what you need is nothing to be wrong with you.
Yeah.
I don't belong here. So what you need is to feel like you belong here. So all of these anxiety statements are born out of this unhealthy fear that you think, you perceive that you need something. And envy. It's not fair. So what is your need? What do you need? You need things to be fair. Well, here's the thing. We know this. We live in a fallen, broken, sinful world. Everything's not going to be fair. So if you think that you need everything to be fair, if you think that you need your parents to treat you fair, like should they treat you and your siblings fairly? They should. But that doesn't mean that they are, or that you're going to perceive that they are. And so you're going to perceive that you need everything to be fair if you're not going to live with this. And then here's the thing, though. I'll get to that in a second. How it borns out of the kind of a mutant secondary emotion. But so then you got shame. Oh my gosh. So shame statements. I'm bad. Okay, so when you're saying that you're bad, you're fearing being bad because here's the thing, you need to be good. But whose eyes do you need to be good in? Because now we live in a completely disjointed and fragmented world where one person's perception of good is another person's perception of bad. So now it's kind of like, well, who do I need to please now? Because I need to feel that I'm good. And so again, I have this shame that I'm bad, and I know and I feel the need to be good, but whose eyes am I need to be good in? Okay. I'm a loser. I can't do anything right. So you have this need of doing things right, but in whose eyes do you need to be right in? Okay, so this is where shame and embarrassment. Here's what I mentioned this at the 11 o'clock, and I'm like, is it too soon to mention the Coldplay scandal? But this is one of the things I love about our culture is that they are so hypocritical. Oh my gosh, so hypocritical. So a culture that has so accommodated divorce and happiness. All he was doing is wanting to be happy. Well, why is the culture getting out again? Now, as a Christian, we know what is right, what is wrong. But it's so funny to me that a culture that can celebrate celebrities having 2, 3, 4, 5 marriages and letting them be on the Hollywood stage and letting them get all and same thing. We can have womenizers making millions of dollars in the NBA, the MLB, and all that. And then we have this CEO, and the culture is going to crucify them. I just always find that so hypocritical. But nevertheless, I'm not saying what he did was right by any stretch of the imagination. But I just think that our culture is so hypocritical. That's why, if you're trying to live up to the standards of our culture, you probably need, you need to stop, because that's where these rogue emotions, when you're trying to meet all of your perceived needs through this lens of trying to have our culture meet your perceived needs, that will never happen. Absolutely never happen.
The target's going to move every time.
It's going to move. And then you have the apathy statement. I spend a while thinking, okay, how does unhealthy fear show up in apathy? And this is where I started thinking of myself.
Okay.
Because there are times where I have no expectations. Now, I had to be honest, why in many of these situations do I not have any expectations? Because I don't want to feel disappointment.
Yeah, I feel that.
And so therefore, it's just easy to be apathetic. I don't care.
Yeah, it's a protective mechanism.
It's a protective mechanism.
Yeah.
Now, if you want to leave in some sense some expectations up to God, but you're still going to give it your all and your best, okay,
sure.
But that was a self-protective. I don't care, and I actually think that a lot of teenagers live there because they don't want to feel disappointment, and so I don't care. Whatever, and that's the reason why they're gravitating towards the digital and when I say the digital sphere, then the physical sphere, because if I can be apathetic there but be present here, I don't have to necessarily feel the pain of rejection or have to feel what I can just be. I can be the meh there, whatever, because I'm there protecting myself in the digital and not putting myself out there in the actual physical present space.
Fascinating.
So
did you come up with all those?
What's that?
Those the stop bubble comments for each of those?
You see, this is where I love using ChatGPT. So here's what I did.
I was wondering about that.
Yeah. So I gave ChatGPT. So I had at least 3 quotes.
Okay.
For everyone. So like for anxiety, I said, I would love to have chat bubbles created that would be statements that anxiety would give, statements such as, I'm not good enough, what's wrong with me, and I even said, why am I like this? So I gave them anywhere from 2 to 3 prompts, and then it gave me other bubbles.
Awesome.
And I'm like, oh, this is cool. So I didn't have to sit there. This is where, hey, listen, I took my own creativity, and I gave it the prompts, and then it saved me time. It saved me probably a good hour and a half, 3 hours for me to come up with all of those bubbles.
And then you look through them and discern, make sure that there's, interesting. Okay, yeah. That's what I was wondering, because I was like, man, that's a lot of time and creativity.
Yeah.
But yeah, those really resonated well, and I could see how giving a couple could help get you the better results.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So I want to look at the idea of, emotions taking up residence.
Yeah.
We talked about it a little bit. But that's really the key is to guard against that, right? Them taking up residence.
Yeah.
So we're going to experience them, but we have to push back against them taking up residence. So you talked about these 5 principles that you will have to activate. We have to discipline our lives in these truths. So my question is, if I can only do one of them, which one should I pursue?
Out of the 5?
Yeah. Oh, if you're not watching on YouTube, you missed it. We had a great scowl by PJ when I asked that. Can I just do one? I'm very busy. I have a lot going on. Which one should I pursue?
Well, I would actually, and this reason why I started with number 1, because I believe that we live in the most tired, burned out culture that, in some sense, has I don't want to say ever existed, and it's not, and that doesn't mean that we work harder than the previous generations. It just means that all right, so follow me here.
So you're talking about pursue physically healthy patterns.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, because you need to rest physically. All right. So this is where technology and this overlap. Let me show you. Okay. So when Thomas Edison created the light bulb, do you know what he created? He created more light so that we can work longer hours.
Yep.
Okay. So when we created the clock, again, it's a good invention, but it has side effects.
Yeah.
Okay, so when you created the TV, now you've created some leisure stuff that we can do when it gets dark.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so so there's so many things. That's why when you look at all of the elements of life right now, we tend to stay up later, get up earlier.
Mm-hmm.
We have all of this processed junk food that it's cheaper to buy processed junk food and fast food than it is to buy real healthy food. I think that is an anathema. Mm-hmm. I think that is wrong. I think that is absolutely evil and demonic. That we have a culture that tells us that we ought to be healthy, but the food that is actually more affordable will actually lead to greater health problems. Like, so again, now I'm on my little pedestal, but nevertheless, so we have access and cheaper unhealthy food. So we stay up later, get up earlier. We eat, we process food. We're unhealthy. a lot of people don't work out, don't even know how to work out, and then then a lot of people don't even have a moment or a time or a place that they go to seek perspective, because what happens is that when you're tired physically, when your body is unhealthy physically because of what you are eating and putting into your body, and you're not exercising, guess what's going to happen? Your heart and mind actually shrink their perspective. And so now you start looking at life through a straw hole where you are so not even tunnel vision, because that tunnel's not that big. You are so microscopic into zoning in on your problems and what's not going right. You can't even see what God might be doing in your life. And then, because we don't like to forgive ourselves because of how we're feeling, or no one loves, we have the Eeyore syndrome where, oh, bother, no one cares. And then a lot of times we've made so many mistakes in our life because we've lived this way for so long, we can't even forgive ourselves. Wow. And so we're not even letting God forgive us. And one of the things that I didn't say about the pursue physical healthy patterns is, it was also on the mountain where God asked Elijah twice, why are you here? And so Elijah needed to confess his, in some sense, his truth, which were lies he believed.
Wow.
So you need to confess the lies that you believe. What are the lies that you actually believe, so that you can let God love you in what you have believed that are lies? And then you need to find community. And then you need to practice praise and gratitude. So if you don't do any other thing, because here's what I actually believe, is now that you got me on my little soapbox doing this, but if you could just pursue physically healthy patterns like this, I can promise you it's going to lead you to put your hope in God. I can promise you it leads you to anchor possessing the promises of God. I believe that it would actually allow you to persevere through purpose, because that's actually what Elijah did. Yeah. He persevered. He got back to doing what God had called him to do, and then just being persistent. But if you can do just one thing, I would take number one.
Because it would lead to all five.
I think it would lead to all five. Well, because people ask how I do what I do. I'm telling you, like, now I'm not I'm not the perfect bill of health. Like, in the sense of, listen, if I told you what I ate, you'd be like, I love my ice cream. I mean, I think I've told you I love my cookie butter ice cream from Trader Joe's.
Plenty, yeah.
I have a sweet tooth. I love potato chips.
So at a restaurant. At a restaurant.
Yeah.
We're ordering, we're looking at appetizers, we're looking at the main menu. By the time he's ordered, even looked at the main menu, he's already decided what he's having for dessert.
Yeah. That's me. Yeah. I mean,
most people, it's like, give me the dessert menu later. No, you've already decided.
Well, and that's why, like, when it comes to working out, I really do work out for two big reasons. One, so I can eat basically what I want in moderation, and so that I can be healthy. So, and again, moderation, I really do try to moderate my diet, where for the most part I eat wholesome foods, but here's the thing, I work out as much as I do so that I can add, but you saw me on, like, if I can't work out, I'm going to really moderate my food intake.
Yeah.
And from a discipline perspective, and I actually learned this in the Ironman, and I know that during the whole Ironman series I talked about this, but there's actually better moments for you to actually consume more sugar. So in an Ironman, if I'm about to go out and burn energy and burn calories, it actually is perfectly acceptable for me to drink a Coke.
Yeah.
Because I'm actually about to go, I need the energy, I need the sugar, but I'm actually about to go out and to expend that energy. I'm about to burn it.
Use it.
So
right away,
so that's where, when I'm thinking, and again, this is just part of how I'm thinking mentally and processing even some of the more, when I say unhealthy, sugar infested foods, is that, hey, if I've burned the calories, or I'm about to go burn the calories, it's better for me to do it now than if I just consumed it and went and sit on the couch.
Yeah.
Again, those are ways to even think through, because if I did not have an active lifestyle, but here's the thing, if I didn't have an active lifestyle, here's what I know just from research, is that I'm not releasing endorphins, I'm not releasing dopamine, and I'm not releasing serotonin. And with this is so cool. I did this research. So doing aerobic exercise, all right, so when I do aerobic exercise, so like go for a run, okay, I'm releasing endorphins. But when I'm lifting, not only am I lifting, kind of releasing endorphins, but I'm actually releasing either dopamine or serotonin. And then when I'm doing a HIIT workout, a high intensity interval training, where I walk, then I sprint, or if I bike and I go at a zone 2 and then I get to a zone 4, zone 5, then I'm releasing the other set.
Interesting.
So this is where, and I actually do that throughout my week. I run, I do HIIT intervals, and I do strength training, all of them releasing these healthy, whatever you would call them, healthy chemicals in your body. Wow. And so anyways, I know I lost all of you there.
Well, it's fascinating because you answered it in a way that I didn't expect. I was kind of baiting you to say, well, of course, all 5. But it's interesting because when you were going through 1, that whole section is not, or at least most of it is not something you're used to hearing from a pastor on stage on the weekend. But I think that was great the way you explained it. And
well, you've seen me when I don't get when I don't get 7 to 8 hours of sleep every day, and I don't get to work out every day. Like I know this to be healthy, mentally and emotionally.
Yeah. So let's look as we wrap up. Let's look at these. Let's keep this in mind. These kind of final takeaways. You said rogue emotions are real. You're not the only one who has them. They'll never be eradicated this side of heaven. You can keep them as strangers, just not family. And God loves you, and so does your church family. So we had this final moment where you asked the question, how do you need to mature in understanding, harnessing, and leveraging your rogue emotions? So you encourage people to label the rogue emotion they're feeling, write it down, put it in the jar, and basically give it to Jesus by putting it in the jar. So talk about that moment.
I thought it would have been great. I mean, it's a great model. It's a great model for what you can do mentally. Label the emotion.
Yeah.
And feelings and emotions are different, but you can use the word feelings to describe how you're feeling emotionally. Okay, my stomach feels bad. Well, that's not necessarily an emotion. That's actually a feeling. But emotions, you can in some sense label the emotion, and then why do you feel that emotion? Okay, so that's kind of where you just need to model that, and that's something that you can model with your spouse. Like if your spouse seems to be very anxious, if your spouse seems to be apathetic, if your spouse seems to be dealing with some kind of shame, okay, just what emotion are you experiencing, and then why are you feeling that emotion? Okay, again, it's using the feelings wheel, but in these rogue emotions type of setting. And then figure out a way to give it to Jesus. When I say figure out a way to give it to Jesus, but those 5 things though are ways that you can give it to Jesus. Do you need to be anchored to one of his promises and give that to him? Example would be from Daniel 3, where you have Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. They are told that if they don't bow down, worship the image, that they will be thrown into the fiery furnace. But they show, and when I say they actually show no rogue emotion. Oh. But wow. anybody else, I mean, I probably would have, shown. I'm not just saying that. I probably would have shown some rogue emotion, like you. Yeah. I'm a little afraid. I'm a little anxious. If I don't bow down, But here's what they say. I mean, they say, we believe that our God can deliver us from the fire, and even if he don't, we will not bow down. Okay, so What? So what have they done? They have it. They've put their hope in God. They have possessed God's promise that, hey, listen, I mean, very similar to other followers, believers. Like, yeah, I mean, like, we're going to anchor ourselves to the Lord, even if He doesn't come through.
Yeah.
So that's an example. And so let me end with this, because I didn't get to it in the message, and I want to end with how the church, how we can be a safe place with those who are struggling with their mental health.
Okay.
And this could be a safe place for all three buckets. You know, chemical imbalance, demonic, oppression, possession, and then the most. And when I say the
most prevalent,
prevalent would be the spiritual, physical imbalance. All right, so I just got a list here. This is where, like, I'm to this point now. I'm just so tired of the church playing games. I'm so tired of the church playing games, spiritual mumbo jumbo games. You know the spiritual pride games, like that. Like, I'm just tired of the church playing games. So if we can just stop playing games, I think we would turn into a safer place. So stop playing spiritual games. And then I'll explain some of that too. Stop performing for people and giving them a quick charge of inspiration, but fill their hearts and minds with biblical transformation. I could have, and maybe you came away inspired, but my point, but my goal in this, like, I wasn't trying to inspire you. I was actually trying to give you meat to transform you.
Yeah.
And part of that is, I don't know if you really felt in some sense inspired that Pastor Josh struggles. Maybe you felt relieved that Pastor Josh struggles, but hopefully I gave you something that could lead to transformation. Mm-hmm. So that's where a safe place would be. Like, let's stop trying to give you a quick fix. Well, you just need to pray more.
Yeah,
that's part of the playing games. Do you need to pray? You do. I even had a point. Persist in prayer. But it's way more than that.
Yeah.
Okay? Stop pretending that we got it all figured out. I don't care if Billy Graham was your granddaddy. Oh, Billy Graham hadn't figured it all out, okay? So and Billy Graham didn't even begin to think that he had it all figured out. But this is part of where if you start thinking that Christians have it all figured out, and you think that they have it all figured out, and they've told you that they have it all figured out, then they actually become an unsafe place and person.
Yeah.
We don't have it all figured out, which is why we still need Jesus.
Amen.
We need to be a people prepared to journey with broken people. And that's just something that I actually think most churches are not prepared for, that I actually think that we need to, even here at Northland, we want to prepare even better. Mm-hmm. Sure, we have a counseling center, we have all that, but we're all broken. Jesus is putting us back together. And so I want us to be a people ready to journey with broken people, because here's the thing. We're like Humpty Dumpty, all right? We all come to the table broken.
Yeah.
And some of us are further along of Jesus having put us back together, but he ain't come back yet. So therefore, we still have elements of our brokenness. That's why I lead from a broken place. And because I lead from a broken place, I want to make it more acceptable for you to own your brokenness. Because until you and I own our brokenness, we're not going to be the Humpty Dumpty that gives ourselves back to Jesus and says, put us back together. Yep. And so one of the ways that he puts us back together is through biblical community. And so I just want us to be a people that's prepared for the journey with broken people. Be a people that makes it all about King Jesus. So obviously at this message, I had somebody email me and like, I was a little hesitant about this series, but when I saw that you said that Inside Out didn't go further and showed that Jesus wasn't the center, I just was relaxed. Well, yes,
right.
We need Jesus. All right, so. Be a people that drinks and eats from the water and the bread of Jesus, for he alone satisfies. I actually think because here's what we're saying. We don't have it, but he does. Amen. And we're going to constantly run to him.
Amen.
And so we're modeling that. Be a people that lives on mission, that truly believes and behaves that we are part of something much bigger than ourselves. be a people that is, that isn't scared to talk about the hard things. I mean, this was a hard thing, and even by labeling and even labeling those 3 buckets, I knew I haven't been, nobody's, said anything bad, but that's a hard thing to say.
Mm-hmm.
And then be a people that knows how to winsomely and wisely engage the culture, noting the good and the bad, and explaining the difference between cultural ideology and biblical theology.
Oh, that's so good.
That's how we can be a safe people.
That's good.
So, Northland family and friends, thank you for tuning in to another Extra Takes, another episode of Extra Takes. The next series. So we got 1 week just as a kind of a down week, and then we start our series, How to Lose Your Family in 10 Easy Ways. Because it's the 10 ways that you're, in some sense, you're practicing that you need to stop practicing. Anyways, so I start out with, so I do some kind of reverse psychology in this series.
A little bit. Yeah.
So I'm telling you what I do to actually lose our family.
We should.
And how in the power of the Holy Spirit through the gospel, we can allow Him to change our behavior so that we can have healthy families that reflect the glory of our King. So can't wait for that series to start.
It's going to be
great. It starts August 9th. Which is Joni and I's anniversary.
Hey.
Or is it the 10th and 11th? I think it's the 10th and 11th. So it's the weekend right before my anniversary.
I'd have to look. Yeah. It's awesome.
Anyways.
Looking forward to it.
So blessings.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Extra Takes. Be sure to follow us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts so you won't miss a single episode.